Ravens Wrap is sponsored by Bud Light, jctickets.net, Geico Insurance, Donaway Furniture, Ocean City Golf Club, RussellStreetReport.com, Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Holiday Inn Express, the original Green Turtle, hosted by the Blue Ox Bar and Grill.
And welcome in. It's the original Green Turtles Ravens Wrap Show right here on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio, the strongest Ravens signal affiliate on Delmarva 93.5 The Beach. We are broadcasting from the Ravens Room at the Blue Ox Bar and Grill, 127th Street and Coastal Highway in Ocean City. With Ravens Roost 44, give yourselves a hand. Welcome into week number 10 of the NFL. And for your 3 and 5 Baltimore Ravens coming up, we're going to recap the 24-18 loss to the Cleveland Browns. I haven't said that in the 5+ years I've been doing this show up until now. We'll talk news and notes, take a trip around the AFC North, and preview the upcoming game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Kickoff at 1 o'clock at M&T Bank Stadium. The pregame show on 93.5 The Beach at 12:30, and of course our radio show airing at 11 o'clock. The Ravens Wrap Show brought to you by our friends at Bud Light, the Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Geico, the Ocean City Golf Club, jctickets.net, which provide free Ravens tickets, and our friends at the Holiday Inn Express at Northside in Ocean City. Also, Donaway Furniture. You can visit them for great furniture, Serta mattresses, rental makeovers, located there 130th Street, Bayside in Ocean City. Their phone number 410-250-5100. Also, buyatoyota.com, your official site for Toyota deals. Now, don't forget, you can like us, Ravens Wrap at the Blue Ox on Facebook. Also, our website is up and running thanks to this gentleman to my left. To your right, ravenswrap.com is the website. I'm Mike Bradley from 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore and locally doing mornings now on 92.7 WGMD. To my left, former Lehigh College player, OC local, back after a long sabbatical, John Garrett. Give it up. Good to have you back. And sometimes Joe Flacco supporter. To our left, this man needs no introduction, the mayor of Ocean City, Rick Mead. Rick, welcome back.
Mike, good to be here. Thank you.
OC local and writer, Buckman as well. Buck, welcome to the show. Appreciate it.
President of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Big job.
Let's set the scene coming into the game. The Ravens came in at 3 and 4 off the bye. The Browns came in at 3 and 5. The Ravens inactives for the game. Left guard Kelechi Osemele, who the other day was put on injured reserve. He's out for the season. He's going to get back surgery. Wide receiver Brandon Stokely and running back Bernard Scott, who was picked up for depth at running back because of a banged up Bernard Pollard, were inactive for the game. For the Browns, of note, no major inactives for the Browns. A.Q. Shipley started in place of Osemele at left guard, and Jameel McLean started in place of Josh Bynes at linebacker. Earlier this week, as I just mentioned, Kelechi Osemele put on IR. But, John, I'm going to start with you as we talked about. We have never, in the 5 years since John Harbaugh, Joe Flacco, Ray Rice started, had never had a loss to the Cleveland Browns, 11 straight wins. I'm very careful in a loss not to automatically assume that the team had a bad week of practice or they didn't come prepared or, they didn't have any will to play. But I got to tell you, collectively, not every last guy, but collectively, there seemed to be a real lack of energy, a real lack of passion. Also maybe, a sense of, I don't want to say desperation, but certainly a need to get a win there. As a whole, I just didn't see that. Coming off a bye week, very surprising, especially for a team under John Harbaugh that was 5-0 coming off of byes.
A few weeks ago, Ray Lewis was speaking about the void in leadership, and he may have been right. I mean, you need the players on the field because there is a clear lack of passion. There's a clear lack of trust, too. They're not executing. It's not all the offensive line. You have the running backs that aren't hitting the holes, and they're just not trusting that the holes are going to be there. I don't think Joe trusts that the receivers are going to be open, and he makes bad passes. So there's no anticipation. It's just everything's out of sync. Now, this can turn around in 1 week. We are talking about the Super Bowl champs. So this can turn around quickly, so we can't overreact. But it is certainly clear that the team isn't executing pretty much at any level at this point, and it shows. I mean, this game, guys, this is why we have DVR, because you can just do whatever you're doing. The game's on the background, and if there's a play that happens, you just hit rewind. And then you can get back to doing what you're doing for 15 minutes and hit rewind. It was one of the one of the most boring games I think I've ever watched.
Well, maybe if you're a Ravens fan.
Yeah, I kind of look at it a little differently.
Well, Mayor, conversely, even though the Browns came in 3-5, and I think it was a 3-game losing streak, a tough loss on the road to Kansas City. It was an energized team, a team coming out at home that played very well. They played with a sense of purpose, and under Jason Campbell for the second straight week, they looked darn good out there.
I thought they looked pretty good, and I characterized the game a little differently. I characterize it as a win, not a loss. And of course, I am the Cleveland Browns fan in Ocean City. There's only a couple of us here, and just to explain that a little bit, I grew up in Cleveland. I lived in Cleveland until I was about 11 years old, and I became a fan. And back then, when you were a fan and you picked your team, that was your team. And through good and bad, and mostly bad, I've stuck with the Cleveland teams all the way through. So it was an exciting game. I really thought they would win that game. I thought they'd be prepared for that game. They've really improved each week. Their defense is, I think, underestimated. Although I don't think that the Ravens underestimated their defense. I think they knew what they were going to be up against, and they took advantage of some of the opportunities that they were presented with. When they played in Baltimore the first time the Browns had the ball, they went down to about the 5-yard line, and they didn't get the ball in the end zone. They kicked a field goal. Right then and there, I knew we weren't going to win that game because they didn't get the points when they needed to get them. This time they got down there, and on 4th down, they knew they couldn't kick that field goal. They knew they were only going to score so many points, and they went for it, and they got the touchdown. That was a big difference in the beginning of that game, and I think that really set the tone for the Browns.
Buck?
Papo usually asks me on here because he knows I'm a Redskin fan at heart. But I do root for the Ravens, and I agree with John. In fact, I usually like his commentary on the problems because he doesn't mince words. I watched the game this past weekend, and the Browns played good, and there was a lot of areas that the Ravens need to improve in, a lot.
John, when you go down the stats of this game, the numbers down the line between the two teams are actually very similar. And in fact, on 3rd down, the Ravens were about 50%, where the Browns were about 33%. But the Ravens had 1 more turnover, 3 more penalties for a total of 9. And this team ranks, I want to say, 25th, I believe, in penalties this year, which is something that's uncharacteristic usually of a John Harbaugh coach team. That's plagued them this year. But Jason Campbell had 3 touchdown passes. Flacco had 2. But again, 1 more turnover. But it was interesting coming in. We knew the Browns didn't have much of a run game. They traded away Trent Richardson. But even though they were one-dimensional, as were the Ravens and have been all year because of a lack of run game, hey, Jason Campbell, that Browns offense, they did enough against the Ravens defense, even though the score might not show it. They certainly did in terms of scoring touchdowns when they needed to.
Yeah, I mean, all these guys, you got to remember, even, we're talking about the Browns, and the Browns aren't as bad as, I agree with you, Rick. I mean, they're not as bad. They're not the Browns. They're a pretty decent team. Even the Jaguars, though. I mean, all these teams, the entire league, these are professional football players. So they're the best 1,600 people in the world at their job. So they're all pretty good. So if you don't execute, and then on top of failure to execute, you make mistakes where you're turning the ball over or you're having penalties or you're going backwards. I mean, that's going to kill a team that's struggling. Can't typically overcome those types of mistakes. So it just compounds, and it's bad coaching. Let's face it. I mean, these guys are the fundamentals. You see guys catching the ball in their body instead of catching the ball with their hands at the highest point. I mean, just basic high school type stuff. We're just not executing in any fashion. So,
Rick, as I talked about, you take a look at the offense, and very heavily weighted for the Browns in the past, 262 yards in the air, just 73 on the ground. But that 73, though, is enough to keep the defense honest, even though the yards per carry weren't great. That's enough to keep the defense honest, to be able to set up play action and to be able to be balanced in your attack as best as you can be.
Yeah, the yards per carry were pitiful. They're counting on the run for 1 or 2 yards when they need it, and really that's all they're getting. I mean, that's all they got all throughout the whole game. That's where they do not have that explosive runner or anybody's going to break off that big run right now. So it's to set up the pass. And Campbell, I think what Campbell showed is a little stability at the quarterback position for the Browns. It showed if they have that stability, they can be a decent team. Not saying they're a good team yet, but with the stability of quarterback, they could be a decent team. And really, he wasn't even going to, the primary receivers were really being covered pretty well by the Ravens. Mm-hmm. You didn't see Josh Gordon open very often. The tight end wasn't open very often. He was really going to Little and to Voss. So the Ravens were playing pretty good defense on his key guys.
And Little, Actually caught some balls this week.
Little actually, and you know, if you looked at it, he went and got the ball.
Yeah, right.
He was sitting back before and letting people take it away from him. If you look at a couple of the plays, he stepped out in front of the defender and he went and he took that ball. And that's what they've been trying to get him to do for 3 years. And that's the first time I've really seen that improvement.
Well, and Travis Benjamin out with an ACL, but a lot of vertical guys in terms of wide receiver. Greg Little, 7 catches, 122 yards. But Josh Gordon had been a lightning rod once he came back from the suspension for 2 games. But yeah, held the 3 catches for 44 yards. But Little, Gordon, no touchdowns. And that's ultimately, hey, you contain them. Don't allow them in the end zone. Unfortunately, Devon Best, John, coming in, had last, I want to say 3 games, had a lot of drops, and the Browns fans were on him.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a possession receiver, but he had not 1 but 2 touchdowns, just 3 catches, but 2 were touhdowns.
If this guy catches the ball, I mean, he in Miami, he was a force, underneath guy, possession guy, moving the chains, and obviously we saw what types of move he has after the catch against probably one of our better athletes, leaving him breaking his ankle, so to speak. So it's, that team, if they can piece it together, they're pretty dangerous on the offensive side of the ball. And they look like geniuses trading Trent Richardson. I mean, he just looks terrible right now. So he get an extra first-round pick, and it looks like that was a good move. But Jason Campbell, yeah. Buck, I mean, you know all about him. Yeah. He's got the pedigree. He's played in this league a good long time. He's not intimidated. It's not too big of a deal for him, and he went out there and executed the offense.
I was surprised. I mean, it really was. And Rick had told me, prior to the game that, because I hadn't been following Cleveland. Sorry, pal. But
I understand.
But I've known Jason Campbell since he came into the league, as we went through with him in Washington. I think he really stepped up and played ball and was a leader on the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
He really was. So.
Yeah. Now, the last couple of weeks, he's looked very good. And we've only got about 45 seconds, but Mayor, we talked about the fact that, Brian Hoyer early in the year taking over for Brandon Weeden. He looked like he, at least this year, was going to be the answer at quarterback. He goes down with an ACL against Buffalo, and you're back to Weeden. That's not working out. But you got Campbell there, who I thought was going to be the backup altogether. Now he gets a shot. Last 2 games, he's looked really good.
Yeah, he's got a gun, too.
Yeah, he's added the consistency. I think he's matured a lot at the position. He grew a lot for his years in Washington and everything. He knows how to spread the ball around. He doesn't turn the ball over. He manages the game. And that's what Cleveland needs to concentrate on now, is managing the game and being consistent.
Yeah. More to come here on the Ravens Wrap Show on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio, 93.5 The Beach. We're back next. Keep it in.
In April 1959, Art Wall won the Masters, edging out Carey Middlecoff and Arnold Palmer by finishing birdie, 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 par birdie. 1 month later, Ocean City Golf Club celebrated the opening of their first 18 holes. That course has been transformed now into one of the most scenic golf layouts on the East Coast. Come experience 36 of the most beautiful and challenging holes you'll find anywhere. Ocean City Golf Club in Ocean City, Maryland.
Welcome to the Comfort Inn Gold Coast. Conveniently located just 1 block from the beach and adjacent to shopping at the Gold Coast Mall and the movie theater. Newly renovated and open year-round with a marvelous bayfront view. Visit us on the web at comfortgoldcoast.com and see our hot deals and great golf packages, or simply call our direct reservation line to plan your stay.